School is a place where parents take their children so that they can stop disturbing them. But it's also a place where we are rid of ignorance and foolishness. It's a place where we get to discover the world in which we live in, ourselves, and the people around us. So for me, I would say that school is a place of discovery. Now, in this video, I'm going to be juxtaposing university education in Kenya and in France, and I'm going to be doing this under different categories, and with the help of the timestamps, you're going to be able to navigate through them quite easily. So the first thing that I would like to say is I have been able to be fortunate to attend both very good schools in both countries. In Kenya, I attended Daystar University, which is one of the best communication schools, and is also a private university. And here in France, I am attending Rennes School of Business, which is a business school and also one of the top ranked business schools in the country and also in Europe. As a result, I have been able to get access to quality education from both countries, and that is something that I do not take for granted. So the first category that I would like to talk about is student life, and I think this is one of the most important things when it comes to school or university life. It's one of the things that we're always looking at because it enables you to have a balance in your academic life. If you have a bad student life, you will not have a good academic life, and if you have a balanced one, it will enable you to really have beautiful experience with your academics. And I would say that while I was studying in Daystar, this was the case for me. It was really balanced because we had a wide array of things that we could participate in, whether it comes to just exploring our hobbies, whether it's singing, whether it's acting, whether it's dancing, whether it's strengthening prayer, reading the Bible. We had all of that. I participated in quite a lot of these activities that were given, and on top of that, we had events at least on a weekly basis. We had interactions with alumni who came to school to just give us advice, people who are good in their fields, to just come and have a chat, interact with us during these events. We had cultural events. It was a really wholesome student life, not forgetting sports activities, which were there in plenty. So this really provided a good balance for me with my academic life, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was a good student. And when I came to France, I found that it was quite the opposite. There wasn't a huge amount of activities that I found at disposal, and most of the time it's like you wanting to be part of these activities is like a nuisance, because a lot of these societies were managed by the French students in the school most of the time, and honestly I didn't feel like international students were welcome. For example, we'd be told that, oh, we're looking for only 1 or 2 international students to join us in this club that we have, and we'll have to do an interview, you have to send your CV. So when I saw that, I was like, I don't think these people really want to integrate international students. I mean, why would you tell me that you're looking for only 1 or 2, yet more than 200 international students have joined the school? I mean, and at that point you have at least 20 something, 26 clubs that I saw, and they were not really diverse, so I didn't even find anything that I could engage myself into and really enjoy. When it came to the sporting activities, also quite limited. So for me, I just decided, you know what, student life for me, it's not that important here, because first of all, the academics were really tight. It was a lot of work and very little time. And I would also think, because I put in a lot of time into my student life in my undergraduate degree, I'd explored a lot of that, and I already knew what I loved and not. So I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to force things. So moving on to the administration, and I would say in Kenya it was a nightmare. And we all know that dealing with administration has never been anything that's easy in Kenya. Even our own government is a nightmare to work with. So why would it be any different in any institution? It's basically a mirror of a government institution. So in Daystar, it was really hard when it comes to when you wanted to register for courses, if you wanted to change a course, if you anything to do with your finances, exam cards. It was always a nightmare. It felt like you have to go there and literally stand there like an activist and be like, I need to talk to someone and I need someone to talk to me because I pay for these services. But when I came to France, it was quite the opposite. It was very easy to deal with the administration, very welcoming. You could even just send an email and within a few hours someone has replied. There was a dedicated student center to help, especially international students, with anything that even help you to set up, services like banking, just settling in France. The school could actually help you with such kind of stuff, even getting accommodation, which I think is one of the best things. So moving on to course schedule, in Daystar, I would say I was really blessed that I went to Daystar because we had the freedom to choose our own classes. So you could study at your own pace, which I really loved. You'll be given all these courses that you were supposed to do by the end of your undergraduate degree, and it was just upon you to decide which ones you wanted to do in which semester. But you'd have to be very careful to do the prerequisites of some advanced courses before, because if you didn't do them, it would mean that you have to stay longer in the school so that you can do them, so that you can go to the advanced courses. But that is an experience that I really loved, and that happened because in days that we used an American system, so that is something that I really loved. And that was an opposite case here in the Royal School of Business, because you'd just be given like, these are the courses that you're gonna do the semester, and you get like 7-8 courses, which was an absolute nightmare. If you're studying masters, then you know that studying 7 courses, 8 courses, 9 courses in a semester is an absolute nightmare, because there's a lot to do, a lot of reading, a lot of research, not to mention group presentations. Why do we still have to do group work? My God, it's stressful. And one thing that I really don't like about how they organized our schedules in my school here in France is the fact that they really didn't care about our students. They created the schedules according to teachers' availabilities. So I remember in our second semester, we literally had to sit down for 9 hours for one class just because that teacher was available on that day. So from morning at 8 until 6 p.m. you have one class with one teacher, and then this teacher was very condescending, looking at us like we're the most foolish people from I don't know which planet. And I'm like, I didn't pay all this money to have such a bad experience. Like, what the hell? If this person is not available, then look for somebody else. But sitting down for 9 hours for one class, it's horrible. So I would say I really didn't enjoy the way the courses were scheduled. No. Having 9 classes in one semester, no. It was horrible. It just felt like I was always rushing to just finish something, to read. It was a lot of stress. So when it comes to the classroom decorum in Daystar, I remember one of the things that I really enjoyed about Daystar was class participation. We had the leeway to talk during class, to debate our arguments, to say what was, in our minds. It's something that was quite normal, and I think that has to do with it being a communication school. You need to communicate, and here in France, very different. It always seemed as if the teachers had to force people to say something in class. I didn't understand. Why is it that a lot of students didn't want to speak, but also a lot of teachers were not encouraging people to speak? There's some who would just come in and then they would start reading their class slides that they had from the start of the class to the end without asking questions. They're just there rambling. So you're looking at a human being just walking around and saying whatever it is that they had prepared, and you're not invited. It's like you're just there to just witness a class. No, witness a teacher talking about something. And it was quite weird. In some classes, so that people could participate, the teacher would tell you that your participation is like 10% of your exam, and then that's when you will see people raising their hands. But for most part, it was just like the one thing that I really found weird in our classes in France is that we had breaks in between classes. So after 1 hour 30 minutes, we'd have like a 10-minute break, And that is not something that happened in Daystar. We didn't have such kind of things. And here, during those breaks, people would go smoke, and the teacher would even join students in smoking. And the whole time I used to be just like, this is actually happening? Like, you have a smoke break during class. That would never happen in Daystar. First of all, it's a Christian university. There is no way you're going to just be smoking. No, it's not happening. And also break during what? Break during... No, did you attend Mr. Nahashon's class? Those who attended Mr. Nahashon's class, the 3-hour persuasion class, we were always dozing. It was the one class that you just went to doze. I am sorry, Mr. Nahashon, for sleeping during your classes, but yeah, they were really boring. The one thing that I found very similar between Daystar and Wren School of Business is that the class sizes were quite small, between 25 students to 40 students. So I would say that was actually an optimal environment, and it made the learning process quite easy. But I would say though that in public universities in Kenya, I do know their classes can go up to 100, which can be a nightmare, but I don't know about public universities here in France. So, and when it came to the evaluation methods, I found that Kenya has very strict evaluation methods, or should I say Daystar, and we had a lot of them. So for each and every class, we'd have 1 or 2 continuous assessment tests each semester. Then you'd have personal essays, then you'd have individual essays, then you'd have group presentations, and at times that would also include group essays. And then we had exams. And here in France, we'd have group presentations in all classes, individual essays in some classes, actually very few classes, and then we had their exams. And when it comes to the grading system for the exams in Daystar, because we used an American system, it was hard. We had a 4.0 GPA. That was like the highest. That was the system that we used. And if you wanted to get an A, it would be a 91. It used to be so hard. If you wanted to get that 91, you had to really study, and I really studied. And yes, I'm very happy that I got several A's. And here in France, I don't quite understand their grading point system. I think they have like a GPA of 5.0, but I'm not very sure. And if you want to get an A, it's a 70. But just because it's a 70 doesn't mean that it's easy to get that 70. No, it's also quite challenging. But I would say that for me, after I came here, I wasn't really interested so much in grades, because after I had worked in Kenya, I realized, you know what, the very good GPA that I graduated with in my bachelor's degree doesn't really matter. All that matters is if you can be able to do the job, if you are good at the skills that you have, if you're able to create value for the company that you're working in. That's all that matters. So you can work so hard at getting a GPA that is very good, but if you're not able to translate that knowledge into valuable skills, then it's all useless. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't care about your grades. I mean, if you put in effort towards understanding the material that you're given in class and ensuring that you understand it and apply it, obviously it's going to be easy for you to get a good grade. Also, don't put so much importance on the grade that you lose yourself into chasing the grade that you forget everything else. There's so much to life than just a point something GPA. And from my experience, I realized that there are some unforeseen disadvantages that did make my experience here in France not very nice. And one of them is language barrier. All of us were speaking in English and the classes were in English, but the English that has been taught to French people seems to be a very different version of the English that we are taught back in Kenya. I mean, Kenya, we speak English all the time. It's our formal language. We were colonized by the British, so the British speak is British English. But I don't know which kind of English the French people are taught in school, because most of the time when a teacher who is French, and I had a problem in classes where the teachers were of French origin, so they would ask a question, and for me, I understood a different meaning because of the words that they used. And then when I raised my answer to answer the question, the teacher would be like, what the hell is wrong with this girl? It's like, you don't understand what I'm asking. But other French people would understand what the teacher was saying. And then when the teacher gave an answer, I'd be like, no, that is not the word that you use. If you wanted this kind of answer, this is the kind of sentence that you should have said. I can't think of an example right now. But yeah, that was always my life. Some of the time I found myself in these classes, I was so lost. I was so lost. One other unforeseen disadvantage is the stress that you get from culture shock, and that's one of the things that is just going to affect your school life. And it's yeah, I don't think there's a lot to explain there, but yeah, it does affect you. Another unforeseen disadvantage, I would say, is the fact that you might not find anyone who understands you, so that also might be quite challenging. Like for me, I was the only Kenyan student. I was the only East African student as far as I know, and most of the times I was the only African in my class, so it was really hard to find people that you can talk to that actually understands the things that you're thinking about. Someone who understands, you know, when you want to speak in Swahili, there's no one who understands anything. I would say it was really frustrating. It was. And even making friends was quite hard, because you would see the Latin Americans, they would go to one side so they can speak in Spanish. Indians would go together, Chinese would go together. And then there's me, who's just there. And I sort of became friends with almost everyone, because yeah, now I can interact with different people. I would say it was a disadvantage, but it was also an advantage. Somehow I just adapted myself to the environment and decided, you know what, if there's no one for me, then I'm gonna make everyone for me. And that's how you go through life. No pity party. That is quite an overview of studying in France and in Kenya from my own experience. If you do want to share yours, of course, feel free in the comment section. Whether you've studied in different parts of the world and you're also from Kenya, I think it would be interesting to hear different perspectives.